All right. Good morning, everybody. Hopefully, y'all can hear me. So, if you would just put it on a message in there, let me know that you can hear me. Thanks, Mike. Says good to go. All right. So, just wanted to go over a few things real quick before we get started. First of all, I am coming at you live from my home. So, I do have a dog, and if somebody knocks on the door or something like that, there's a package delivered. I will have to go kind of take care of that and get her to stop barking. And then also, I will only be answering questions that are asked during the office hours. So I noticed there's a lot of questions that were asked in the half hour, overnight, and things like that. Um, I'm only answering questions that are during the office hours. This is just because I want to make sure that people are here to see the answers to their questions. And then also wanted to mention that if you have technical support issues, I won't be able to take care of those here. You'll need to email our support team, and that's just support@topspeedgolf.com. Or if you go scroll down all the way down to the bottom of any page, there's help and support. Click on that. There's other options to get support help. Let me silence my phone here real quick. And then, if you have billing issues or password issues or things like that, you'll want to contact our support team. The last thing I wanted to mention is that if you ask a question that can be fully covered in a video, or there's a course out there that will answer your question, I'm gonna send you over in that direction instead of taking the time to answer on here. It's not that I don't want to answer your question. It's just that I want to answer as many questions as possible. And if I can just send you to a video to get your question answered, then you'll be able to do that. For example, if you ask me, how do I fix my slice? I'm just gonna send you straight to the never slice again section. So let's go ahead and get started here. We'll start with Tony S., who later said to ignore the message. So I'll get to that, and I'll move on to Dave S. here, who says, in the downswing, what moves first, the hips or shoulders? And do they both continue moving to the top of the swing? I am having an issue with starting the weight shift forward while the backswing is continuing to the top. I tend to start the downswing too early. So let's talk. I think a lot of people get confused about this because they're confused about what a pressure shift is versus what a weight shift is. So when you are taking a step forward, so if I'm taking a step forward like that, okay, my weight is shifting this way, but the pressure is building up in my back foot until I put my lead foot on the ground, the foot I'm stepping forward. So the same thing is happening in the golf swing. You're building up pressure as your momentum's kind of going this way, and then when you start down, now your pressure is on that lead foot and you're able to push down into the ground. Whereas if you're here and now you don't have any momentum moving in that direction, and now you try to do it, it's too late. You're typically not going to have enough pressure into the ground. You're not going to be able to rotate. You're typically going to hang back. So that's basically what it is. So the step drill is going to be the one that you're going to want to do. It's the best drill for weight shift. So keep in mind that as you're going up to the top, the pressure is going to be building. You're going to have a lot of pressure in that trail foot. They actually did. I'm not sure if you're familiar with what Swing Catalyst is. Excuse me. What Swing Catalyst is, it's basically this pressure plate. Check it out. They have a great website. They actually have some free education on there that you can learn a lot about it. You can do their kind of level 1 certification for free. But basically, it's a pressure plate, and it measures, as all these little sensors in it, measures all the pressure that you're putting into it with your feet. So they measured all the top tour players, not the top tour players, but they measured a ton of tour players, and they found out that the average was, at address, they were pretty balanced, about 50-50, pretty balanced at address. At the top of the swing, you're seeing an average of about 75-80% of pressure in the trail foot. And then in the impact, that was shifted. It was the other way around. You see the pressure is more in 75-80% on the lead foot. And then in the full finish, they were about 90-95% on that lead foot. So basically, pretty much all their weight was on their lead foot. The only pressure where they're putting down was basically just the weight of their leg into the ground of their trail leg. So keep that in mind, that's kind of your pressure is going to be, you're going to have a lot more pressure in that trail foot as you're going up the top, but your momentum is going to be moving that way. So that's the weight shifting, but the pressure is still gaining as you're going up to the top. There's actually, I cannot remember the video. Let me see if I can find the video, but there's actually a great video that shows Jamie Sadlowski, who's a long drive guy. I believe, I can't remember who put him, but they put him on a pressure plate system of some sort. It wasn't Swing Catalyst, but I think it was their own version. I can't remember who did it, but we do have a video, but we have a video that shows the force vectors. I'm going to see if I can find it real quick. There's a video that shows kind of the force vectors that were going on throughout the swing. So the longer the vector, the more pressure that's putting into the ground. It also shows the direction of it, and then where it is, so you can see where it's in the front foot or the back foot. So I'm going to try and find that. Oh, yeah, I think I found it. So that's going to be G037. When should you start the downswing? So if I just searched downswing, and the drill that you want, the step drill that's really, really good for this, is going to be BR014, how to start the downswing correctly. The step drill is going to be in there. I'd highly recommend that one. And then if you go down here, so you can kind of get a good visual of what's kind of going on, G037, when should you start the downswing? That's going to be in that video. Now, let's not get confused here. The downswing technically starts when the club changes directions. So when you're talking about what's getting to the point of the club switching directions, the hips are firing, the thorax is firing, the arms are firing, the shoulders and everything are firing, and then the club's firing. That is the sequence. It's from the ground up. But what actually, when you're talking about when the downswing starts, when it technically starts, is when the club goes from, you're going there and then it's going back. It's when it switches directions. But all that is happening before the downswing technically starts, if that makes sense. All right. Tony S. So he said, ignore the last message. So what are some tips on how to start the forward movement of the lower body from before the completion of the backswing? I've worked on a step drill and that isn't working for me. Are there any other ideas to create an important move? Really, that's the best drill. It just takes time. I wouldn't just work on the step drill and just give up on it because it just doesn't feel right. If you're not sequencing right and getting a good feel for it, then it just means it's just so foreign to you that it's just not, that it just feels so uncomfortable. So what I would recommend doing is I would keep on working on that step drill. Maybe watch the video a few times over, because I don't know about you, but whenever I watch a movie for the second or third time or something like that, I pick up things that I didn't remember the first time, or like, I didn't realize that happened. You'll probably do that if you watch that video again. So I would be looking at several downswing videos. If you click on downswing, there's several videos there. So I would be looking at that step drill, how to start the downswing. There's one that's how to start the downswing for distance. It's basically the same video. It's just a little bit of a modified step drill. I'd maybe try that one, the one that's got, it's a second video, D064. And the only difference in it is that it's a little less of a step. So that could be one that may be a little bit easier. And then once you get the timing of that one down, then you can do the regular step drill. The key here is to complete the backswing. So you're going up, you're building up that pressure, but you're moving forward. That's the feeling that you should have. The pressure is building. It's like you're taking a step forward. Pressure is building in my back foot, and then my foot comes down. My momentum's moving forward. That's the feeling that you want to have. But it's not a ton. It's not like you're sliding way forward. It's here. So if you draw a line on the outside of your hips, so if you draw a line at address, the outside of your hip down to your ankle, As you go up the top, your hips should never go into that. So if you're going like this and you're sliding your hips, so you're starting the swing. Let me see where I can see myself. So if you draw a line out here to the outside of your ankle, if you're starting the swing like this, you're going to have a hard time with the weight shift. And you're also going to have a hard time getting a big turn. So I would make sure, draw a line on the outside of your hip there and feel like your hip's getting pushed back. And then as you're getting up to the top, you're actually going to start to move off of that line a little bit. So you're going like this and you're moving off that line. And now I'm getting to my lead side. Now, as I'm starting down, I have pressure in my lead foot. And now I can push into my leg to rotate the body open and get everything opening up into impact. So I'd be looking at those things. Draw that line on the outside of your hip down to the ankle, the outside of the ankle there. Make sure you're not going into that line. I see that a lot. We call that basically a sway in the backswing. If you're doing that, that locks up your hip. You can't rotate. If you can't rotate, you're going to have a hard time getting a good shoulder turn. You're also going to have a hard time getting the proper weight shift to your lead side. So that could be what's going on. But again, it's hard to say without seeing your swing exactly what's going on. I will say, if you are looking for an instructor to look at your swing, we do offer an unlimited swing review program. If you click Get a Review toward the top of the page, I know Robin's got spots available. I believe I have spots available. So go ahead and check that out and sign up if you'd like to have an instructor look at your swing, and maybe we can pinpoint the exact thing that's going on in your swing. But without seeing it, I don't really know what that might be. Hit everything to right, no slice. If I change plane more to right, it gets worse. Would appreciate your thoughts. So that's exactly what would happen. So what's happening, the easiest thing to remember is the ball is always going to start mostly in the direction of the club face. So that means if your ball is starting to the right, that means that your face is open. And then it's going to curve away from the club path. But if there's no difference in your face and your path, then there's really not going to be any curvature. So the more difference between your face and your path, the bigger, the more curvature you're going to have, assuming center face contact. So, and off center contact can make it worse, or it can actually kind of straighten it out. But let's not get into the gear effect. Basically, what I just want you to understand is the ball is always going to start mostly in the direction of the club face and curve away from the club path. So if you are hitting it to the right and then you swing out to the right more, you're just going to hit it out to the right more because you're aligning your club face with your club path. So I would actually feel like you're swinging left, that you're getting that club face, because if there's no curvature on it, then that means that your path is out to the right as well. So I would actually feel like your path is going more left. Try to hit some pulls. Try to hit some shots that start to the left and just are straight, just like the ones that are to the right. The best way to fix any swing issue is to exaggerate the opposite. So you're hitting shots out to the right. Let's exaggerate the opposite. And most of the time when you do that, it kind of just straightens it out. But if you overdo it, then all you have to do is ease off of it. And if you don't do it enough, then you want to exaggerate it even more. You may as well completely overdo it and then ease off of it. That's going to be the easiest way to do it. So try to hit some pull shots. Try to feel like, you may want to feel like you're swinging all the way across your body. That's not actually what's going to be happening. You're adjusting a feeling to get the desired result that you want. In reality, right now, you're swinging way too far from the inside, and you're hitting that block out to the right. But if you feel like you're doing this and swinging more to the left, the reality is going to be more likely that you're just swinging straight down plane. So I would definitely try to feel like you're just trying to hit a dead pull. All right. Jeffrey T says lots of different tees claim to be better than others. Marketing, sales, crap. I agree. Or some truth to it. What tee do you game? There's no real. You're exactly right. We've seen brush tees and regular tees, plastic tees, and things like that. Basically, the tees, they can make a I make a small difference. I'm talking like 3 yards. It's going to be less than 5 yards of what a tee can make a difference. And the only tees that really make the biggest difference are the ones that have basically zero friction on the golf ball. So if you have a tee, I'll have one handy. I just use regular tees. I don't mess around with. But if you see those kind of spring-loaded tees, they're they're on a spring. Well, when the club comes in and it hits that, the club is pushing the ball into the tee, right? So that can add some spin. And it can also slow down the ball very, very slightly. I'm talking the smallest little amount. It's going to make 3 yards of a difference. So basically, if you have the tee that's kind of like spring loaded, that really reduces the amount of friction and force of that tee going into the golf ball. And, at that point, it helps you get a couple more yards. Sure. I mean, if you're trying to milk every little thing out of it and you want to just buy some spring loaded tees or things like that to help you, then more power to you. But I just use a regular tee. Honestly, if you're looking to gain yardage, the best way to do it is just to get a big shoulder turn. That's the number one thing to gaining club head speed in distance, is getting club head speed. So that's what I would recommend. But basically, any tee that really, really reduces the friction and the amount of force that the tee is putting on the ball is going to help you get a very, very marginal amount of distance. But I mean, honestly, I don't think it makes that much of a difference. Dirk V says, "Hi Q, can you please explain the right shoulder do when you start the downswing? You have to drop it on plane to keep your right arm bend to get more shaft lean. Is this correct, or is there something else to take into consideration?" So basically, let me get a drink here. Assuming you're right-handed, right shoulder movement is really you're just trying to stay in your posture. So basically, what's going to happen with this right shoulder is it's going to go up and back, and it's actually going to retract. So remember, I was talking about. I don't know if I've talked about it in this office hours yet, but basically, some of the rotation that you get in your shoulder turn is from protraction and retraction of the shoulders. So in the backswing, your shoulder is retracting. That's going to get you the maximum amount. So what retraction means, it just means that my shoulder blade is moving toward my spine. That's retraction. So if I go, like, I'm not going to move my chest at all. I'm going to retract this shoulder, and I'm going to protract my lead shoulder. I haven't moved my chest at all. My chest is pointing in the same exact direction, but I've actually rotated my shoulders about 20 degrees. So that's where some of the shoulder turn comes from. So that's what's happening in the backswing, is that's retracting as you're going back. And then you just want to remain in your posture. So if you were to look at your swing and you get where you're retracting, but your right shoulder is going like this, you're kind of standing up out of it. Well, that's definitely not what you want to do, right? You want to remain in your posture. And then in the downswing, it's actually going to be a little bit steeper, because as you're coming through, you're getting side bend, and your shoulder plane is actually going to be a little bit steeper. So there's a great drill on the website to work on getting that right shoulder plane. So the main thing is just staying in your posture, not standing up. So turning back, your shoulders should be pointed just a little bit outside of the golf ball, 4-8 feet, depending on the club. It really just depends on the club, because driver, you can be a little bit more upright. But typically with irons, you're going to be, anywhere 2 to 8 feet outside of the golf ball if you're drawing a line from socket to socket. So if you're kind of standing up a little bit and you're more level, you're going to have to make compensations in the downswing, and you're going to be a lot less consistent. So, and then in the downswing, like I said, you're going to be a little bit steeper, more down toward the golf ball. A great drill for that is the, shoulder to shoulder drill. Shoulder to shoulder drill. If you just search shoulder to shoulder, I can actually see if I can find the number, the actual drill number for you, make it a little bit easier to search. So shoulder. And what you do with this drill is basically you just take the club, put it across your shoulders. You're going to have a towel on the ground, and you're going to be trying to trace that edge of the club head, or sorry, the butt end of the club, or the alignment stick, whatever you decide to use. In the backswing, it's going to be over the upper part of the towel, and then in the downswing, the other butt end of the club, because you want to be steeper, you're going to be on the lower end of the towel. So it's a great drill to help you stay in your posture. So I found it here. It's C018. So C is in cowboy. 018 is the drill. If you search shoulder to shoulder or C018, you'll find that. It's called Golf Lesson to Hit Pure Iron Shots Shoulder to Shoulder Drill. That's going to be a really great one to help you with the proper shoulder movement in the swing. I wouldn't overcomplicate it more than that. Think about individual. I mean, because your shoulders can move a little bit independently of each other, protraction, retraction, up and down, but you're not really doing this in the swing. It's just this. So I wouldn't overcomplicate it by thinking exactly what this shoulder is doing. I would think more of what your shoulders are doing. And intuitively, typically to get a bigger turn, you'll protract and retract the shoulders on their own. It's not usually something you have to think about. All right. So Serge T says, thank you, Quentin, and the entire Tatsuya Golf team for all you do to help us all be better golf. My question has to do, so you butter me up a little bit before your question. Must have a tough question. My question has to do with hand path or plane in the golf swing and at post impact. So I'm not seeing your question. But you're just asking me, I think, just to talk about hand path or plane in the golf downswing at and post impact. So mainly the thing that matters the most is your actual club path. But the club path is going to follow the hands to a certain extent. So you do want your hand path to be good as well. So what I like to do to look at proper hand path is just to kind of look at, when you're looking at face on, basically you want your hands to be as far away from your body as they can throughout the swing. So if you're kind of bringing everything in, you're not going to be getting as much distance. So if you can stay wide with the hands as much as you can throughout the swing, that's going to be better for distance. It's okay if you get a little bit of bend in the arm at the top. That helps you get the club a little bit longer. It also, if we're talking bent arm versus lead arm, honestly, it doesn't make much of a difference. There's pros and cons to each that basically break even at the end. I don't like to see a ton of bend in the arm. I don't like to see like a 90-degree angle, just because it promotes casting in the downswing. But if you don't cast the club, then nothing wrong with that at all. So from face-on view, that's basically the hand path. Is you just want to have as wide and as long as you can in the backswing. Same thing with the club head, as wide and as long as you can in the backswing. That's going to promote a narrower club head in the backswing and the downswing. So I like to think wide, narrow, wide in the swing when you're looking from face on with the club head. So wide in the backswing, and then you want that to narrow because you're generating lag, right? So you're getting really, really wide here in the backswing. So hands, arms, club as far away from the body as you can. And then the downswing, hands and club are still going to remain far away from your body, but the club, you want that club to feel like it's getting closer. So if you're struggling with lag, this might be a good feeling for you to have, to feel like the club path is narrower when looking for face on. So you can see here I was in the backswing, and here I am in the downswing, much, much narrower, but my hands are still as far away from my body as I can. And then in the follow through, again, that's wide. So hands wide, club wide as I'm going through. So wide, narrow, wide with the club head going through impact. Now from down the line, here's what I look for from down the line. The camera angle is really, really important for this. So when you're looking at your swing, make sure that you have the proper camera angle. Let me bring this a little bit closer so y'all can see. There we go. So camera angle is very, very important. The easiest way to do that, we actually have a video on the website for how to video your swing. Basically, the easiest way to do this is to just take a club and place it on the ground, point it at a target. Let me angle this down a little bit. There we go. So point this down at a target, and then have the camera, when you set up the camera, have it set up to where it's pointing straight down that club. And then have it at about waist level, and which this camera isn't, but have it at about waist level. And then also You want to be as far away enough that the club and the arms and the hands, nothing ever leaves the frame of the camera. So whenever you're looking at your swing on camera, you can always zoom in, but if you're too close, you can't zoom out. So make sure that you are far away enough. And this is if you do unlimited swing reviews too. This is big. If we can't really see what's going on, it's hard for us to help you. So make sure you're doing this and follow the instructions when you're looking at your swing, and even when you're looking at your own swing. So the easiest way to do this now, here's my alignment stick. I'm going to have my ball right here, and basically I'm going to set up to where my hands are right on top of that, to where if I were to drop something from my hands, it would land right on top of that. So here, I'm right here. If I drop this, it lands right on top of that. That's where your hands should be. They should be right on top of that. So the camera should be shooting right down your hand. So your toes are going to end up 3 or 4 inches away in most situations from the alignment stick. So the camera angle is very, very important, because if you don't get the camera angle right, then this line that I'm telling you to draw it's not going to be as accurate, and what you're seeing is not going to be as good. So if you draw a line from the hosel of the club up through the point of the right elbow, this is what we call the elbow plane. You've probably seen this in some videos on the website, but that's going to draw, you're going to draw the elbow plane there. And if you draw that elbow plane, this gives us a really good idea of the plane of the golf swing and where you want to be. So up at the top, you're going to, most people are going to be above that elbow plane. You don't have to be way above it. If you're a flatter swinger, you might be on the elbow plane. But most of the time, ideally, you would probably be a little bit above it, so you're able to get a little bit more vertical. But in the downswing, what I like to do is I like to pause it about halfway down. So this is going to be about when the lead arm is parallel to the ground. So I'm pausing it right here, and I'm looking for 2 things. I'm looking for, one, this shaft, is it parallel to or slightly shallower to that elbow plane? I like to see one of those things. It needs to be either parallel or slightly shallower to. If it's like this, it's pointing down, you're too steep. You're going to have trouble. So you want to make sure that you're pointing shallower, or a little bit shallower. You don't want to be like this. That's too shallow, but slightly shallower to or parallel to the elbow plane. And the other thing I look for is, where are the hands? I like the hands to be either on that elbow plane at this point. If you're a flatter swinger, you need to be on the elbow plane at this point. But if you're a more vertical swinger, you're probably going to be just above it. But if you're way out here, that's going to be an over-the-top pass. So you need to have the hands shallowing out more along with the club. And then I go to about halfway down. So that's going to be where about waist level, about right here. Now I'm looking for the same thing. I'm looking, is my shaft, is it parallel or shallower to that? It has to be in this position. Otherwise, it's going to be an over the top, or you're going to be standing up to get it back on plane. You want it to be in that position. And then the hands, I like the hands to be on the elbow plane at this point, or at least very, very close to it. But on the elbow plane, for sure, would be really, really good. And then the last thing I look for is that club. I like to see that club working right down that arm. See how it's working right down my trail arm? So if you're working like this, where it's working down that lead arm, you're coming down very, very steeply into the ball. You're going to flip. You pretty much have no choice but to flip. But if you're coming down this way, now I'm going to be able to rotate and turn into the ball and be able to get forward shaft length. So that's what I'm looking for into impact, is those hands coming down on the elbow plane. And then after impact, I mean, the club's going to release out in front. It just depends on what kind of shot you're hitting for the most part. If you're looking at your camera and you're trying to hit a fade, it's okay if you're a little bit steeper. You're like in this area, or things like that, because if you're rotating through, you're going to be rotating through with an open club face to get that fade, and that's completely fine. But if you're trying to hit like a straight shot or a draw, you need that club to be coming from the inside nicely and have the hands and everything on the elbow plane. But as far as the follow through is concerned, it's not as important. The ball's already been hit and everything. As long as you're nailing everything down into impact and at impact, you're in good shape. Whatever happens with the hands after that is, you might see a little bit different things, but for the most part, it's really not important. All right. Let's keep on moving here. Don P says, good morning, Q. How much manual turning of the wrist is there compared to just having loose wrists in the downswing? So I haven't had a question like this in a while, but whenever someone asks me, how much am I manually doing this, or am I consciously doing this? Is it an active action to do this? If you are, you got to look at your swing on camera. If you aren't doing something that you should be doing, you're going to actively feel like you need to do that. But if you're automatically doing, then it's second nature. You don't even have to think about it. It just happens. So, everyone has different feelings. I don't know for you. I mean, for me, I don't feel like I have to think about how my wrists are turning throughout the swing. It happens pretty naturally. For someone who's fairly new to golf or is really having trouble thinking or getting the wrist to turn the right way, or they just leave the face open, then they're going to need to consciously feel like they're getting that face to roll over. The hands are rolling over more. Or let's say they're getting that face slammed shut. They may need to manually feel like they're leaving the face open to actually square up the face. So you got to base it on your results, what's happening. And everything that you do in golf is really about adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want. So if you're leaving that face closed, that's from rolling the hands over too much. You may need to feel like you're holding it open, and vice versa. So I can't really answer the question is how much manually turning of the wrist is there, because I don't know what manually feels like to you versus what natural feels like to you, because everybody's a little bit different. So you just got to look at your swing on camera. I will tell you, in the backswing, it doesn't matter much. I mean, because everyone pretty much gets to the right spot. It only really matters in the downswing where that club's coming into. So most people have the face open, and then they flip through impact to square up the face. So that's going to be the move. You're going to want to get that face squaring earlier, tennis racket drill, feeling like that face is squaring earlier, so you can turn and rotate into impact, and you can have that face square longer through the impact zone. So I'd be looking probably at the move section. There's also a great video. I would just search. And if to use the search engine, the easiest way to do it is if you look at the upper right-hand corner of the page, there's a search box there. Put in face rotation in there. I think that video will help you quite a bit understand exactly what I'm talking about. I'd check out that video, Don. All right, so Nicholas F. says, I just recently realized what Clay was talking about when he was explaining shoulder turn and how the right shoulder moves back toward your spine and left shoulder moves away. Can you first explain when this actually begins in the takeaway, and then explain when the feeling of the right shoulder riding with the spine actually releases in the downswing? Mostly concerned with takeaway and so I didn't quite get all of it. I will tell you this is something you really do not have to think about. If you're thinking about how the shoulder is retracting and protracting throughout the swing, you're probably way overthinking it. You need to be thinking about your body turning, because you're naturally, in order to get your club to swing as far back as you can, you're going to naturally retract and protract your shoulders. When that you don't need to think when exactly that happens. It's not like you go in the backswing and now you got to think, okay, I got to retract my shoulder. That's not what happens. As you're getting up to the top and you're getting the maximum amount, your trail shoulder, this shoulder here, is protracting. It's already doing it. And at the top of the swing, your trail shoulder is going to be retracting. It's not something you really have to think about. If it's not happening, it's more likely just because you have a limitation in your shoulders and your shoulders just aren't capable of retracting and protracting. I've never seen a student ever who doesn't retract and protract their shoulders, who has to consciously think about that, what they're doing. It's not something that happens. So honestly, I think you're just getting a little bit, you're getting a little bit of the paralysis by analysis there. I would be more just focus on getting as big a shoulder turn as you can, getting as big a hip turn as you can, because this is where shoulder turn comes from. The amount of shoulder turn you get comes from, if you're looking at tour players, average tour player, The shoulder turn, average shoulder turn for a tour player is about 118 degrees. Average hip turn for a tour player to the top of the swing is about 49 degrees. It's about 49 degrees from the separation from the hips and the shoulders. And then there's about 20 degrees that comes from the protraction and retraction of the shoulders. So this is a very, very small portion of the shoulders protracting and retracting is a very small portion of the shoulder turn that you get. You're talking, it's less, it's probably about 15%, right? So, and it's something that you pretty much do automatically. You don't even have to think about it. It just happens. What you really need to focus on is most people who struggle with the hip turn or the shoulder turn struggle with this hip turn. They don't turn their hips enough. They're only turning their hips maybe 20, 30 degrees, and then they're only getting about to right there. You've got to let the hips go. And that can come from turning the trail foot out. It can come from lifting the left heel off the ground, the lead heel, lifting that up off the ground to free up the hips. That's the number one thing. Some people, they just have a limitation in their upper spine, which is where most of that rotation comes from between the hips and the shoulders. Some people have a little bit of a limitation there. The average, if you have good rotation there, you're going to be looking at about 45 degrees. Average tour player is probably about 49 degrees. So 45, 49 degrees, I would say in there. But if you're only able to get 20, 30 degrees, you may want to look at doing some good stretches. Page turners is what they're called. It's a great thing to do to help you kind of stretch all that out. And basically what you do is you lay on your back flat to the ground, knees up in the air, and you actually turn your lower body, your legs one way, and keep your shoulders on the ground. So that's kind of pulling and stretching everything out. And then you go the other way. Do a few of those in the morning. Now that can help. I will tell you, I'm not a certified physical therapist, fitness expert, chiropractor, anything like that. I can tell you a couple things that might help, but I don't know for sure what would be the best thing. If you're looking for help from that, what I would recommend doing is if you're looking to get a bigger range of motion and things like that, I would go see a TPI certified fitness instructor or a chiropractor even. You can find these people. Titleist is or TPI is Titleist Performance Institute, if you're not familiar with that. And basically they're leaders in understanding how the body moves in the golf swing. So all the instructors here at Top Speed Golf are TPI certified instructors. And what we can do is we can test you and we can see, yeah, you've got a limitation in your back, or, you have a limitation in your shoulder or something like that. We can test you and we can see those things. And that helps us teach you in the best way to get the most out of it. But we can't tell you how to fix those things. That's something that you're going to need to go to a doctor or a fitness professional for. So if you go to mytpi.com, you can search find an expert, and you can search experts in your area, in your zip code, based on what you need. So if you're needing an instructor, someone just to screen you or something like that, and to teach you around whatever your physical limitations are, you're going to want an instructor, a golf instructor like me, Clay, Robin. Robin's doing all the in-person lessons here at Top Speed Golf. And then if you're looking for somebody who's actually going to work you out and physically change those properties for you, again, you're going to want a medical professional, which would be like a chiropractor or like a physical therapist, a fitness professional that can help you, work out and get some flexibility things going. So that's what I'd be looking at. But just a long answer to your question is, you don't need to be thinking about every little movement of the shoulders as you're going in the backswing. Just focus on the big picture, which is getting as big of a shoulder turn as you can. And naturally, your shoulders are going to do this. If they don't, it probably means you have a limitation in your shoulders. And I would look at getting screened by a TPI professional, physical therapist, doctor, whatever it might be, to get that figured out. James N says trial and error, repetition. Yep. Thanks for sharing. I agree with that for sure. A lot of what golf is, that's what golf is for sure when you're practicing and trying to improve. Larry C says, lately I have developed the shanks when hitting half wedges. This usually comes 30, 40 yards out from the green. So I answer a shank question every single office hours. The best way to cure a shank is to basically think about everything about golf is exaggerating the opposite to get the desired result that you want. If you want to fix something, exaggerate the opposite. What would be the opposite of a shank? That would be a toe shank, probably, right? Hitting it way out on the toe. So on all your pitch shots, I would actually be trying to hit it way out here on the toe. And you know what? If you most likely that's going to move you to the center of the face. But hey, if you actually hit one way off the toe, just ease off it a little bit. And that's all you got to do. If you're still hitting it off the shank, off the hosel, exaggerate it even more. You may even need to feel like you're coming in and you're missing the golf ball to the inside. Exaggerate it as much as you possibly can to get the desired results that you want. That's going to be the easiest way. That's the most intuitive and easiest way to fix it. What's likely happening, what I see almost always with shanks, with someone who's struggling with shanks, is the hips are moving toward the golf ball in the downswing. So if you're pitching, you're hitting a 30, 40 yard pitch shot. So that's probably something that's like this far. When you're hitting this shot, you're probably going like this. And when you're coming into the ball, when your hips are moving toward the ball, what's happening is you're taking away the space for your hands to move through. So feel like you're more in your heels more and have your weight forward. If it's a 30, 40 yard pitch, there's no weight shift necessary. Keep your weight on that lead foot and in your heels. And that's going to help you stay back and not have your hips moving toward the ball. So that's what I would recommend. But yeah, whenever, for everything, it's just exaggerate the opposite and it typically fixes it. So Jeff C says, I continue to hit the ball low on the club face and toward the toe, causing me to top the ball. Any suggestions? So if you're hitting it low on the face, it's most likely because you are releasing the club early. When you release the club early, you basically have to pick the ball off the turf. You can't take a divot, because if you do take a divot, you're going to hit way behind the ball. Or in your case, you're not taking a divot and that club's bottoming out earlier and it's hitting the top of the ball. So what I'd recommend doing is going to our stop chunking and topping section and work through those videos. That's going to help you with those if you're topping the ball, because it means your low point's probably behind the ball. And if you're looking on to get a better release, I'd be looking at, are you generating lag in the downswing? That's going to be the top speed lag section. I'd be looking at, are you shallowing out the club, squaring up the club face earlier? That's going to be the move section. And the straight line release, how are your hands delivering the club to the golf ball? That is the right wrist, the trail wrist. Is it bent back or is it straight forward? You're going to be wanting to work on that as well. So I'd be looking at your swing, and I would go in that order: lag, the move, the straight line release. I'd be looking at those pieces. I'd be also looking at the stop chunking and topping section. But again, I can only tell you, I can probably steer you in the right direction. It's hard for me to know exactly what would be best for you without seeing your swing. But if you would like somebody to look at your swing, I'd highly recommend joining our unlimited swing review program and get an expert instructor to look at your swing. Let me get a drink here real quick. Rufus says, various questions on feeling start lower body in the downswing with feeling of lower body in a discus throw. Would feeling of lower body in a discus throw similar motion? So yeah, I mean, that's a good feeling to have, because when you're looking at someone who's throwing a discus, they're aligning their shoulders right with their arm as they're throwing it. So that's allowing, the same thing happens in the golf swing. We want to be staying in our posture as we're going through, and their body is opening up. It's the same kind of feeling. There's actually a video on the website where Clay talks about throwing a Frisbee. It's the same kind of feeling. You're throwing the Frisbee. You're throwing a discus. It's the same kind of feeling that you're having in the golf swing. And that's good. I mean, I would definitely check out those videos, but that would be a good feeling to have for sure. Rufus says, compare the effort, club head speed needed with 20-yard shots, a pitch from a good lie versus a greenside bunker with a good level lie. So if you're looking at, man, I don't know the exact number of club head speed that's needed. It's really a lot of it's dependent on the loft that you're presenting to the golf ball at impact. So if the more loft that you have, the more club head speed you're going to need to get to a given destination. It's going to be more club head speed needed with a 60-degree wedge versus a pitching wedge, right? You're not going to need as much. Think about it in an extreme case, right? If you're trying to hit a driver 20 yards versus hitting a 60-degree wedge 20 yards, you're talking, 12 degrees versus 60 degrees. There's a big difference there in club head. So you're not going to need much club head speed with a driver to make that happen. You just kind of tap it and it's going to go 20 yards pretty much. Whereas with a 60-degree wedge, it might be, it might kind of be about this much swing to get it to go 20 yards. It's all about what's specific to you. You've got to go out and get a feeling for all these things. So the clock system is really the best thing that I know of to really be working on this. And anything from a 20-yard, it's all going to be about getting the right feel for it and for every club. As far as based on the lie that you're in, if you're in a really kind of thin lie where the ball is not really sitting up on the grass, you got to understand how that ball is going to come out. That ball is typically going to come out pretty low. And the reason for that is it's going to be really, really hard to get it higher up on the club face. It's typically going to be, even if you're coming in with good compression, forward shafting and everything, if it's a really kind of thin lie, it's going to be it's going to be lower on the club face. That's also going to cause you to have more spin. So it's going to come out hotter and with more spin. So it's going to come out low with a ton of spin. It's usually going to hit and then, have a lot of spin. It won't roll out very much. Whereas if you have a ball that's kind of higher up on the grass, you can get the club head underneath it. You're going to hit it probably more solid. It's probably going to go further. It's going to be higher, but it's going to roll out a little bit more when it gets there. So it's all about, I would go out and I would hit some pitch shots from some really thin lies. I would hit some pitch shots from some really kind of juicy lies. Some other things to think about. If it's really, really moist grass, there's a lot of moisture in the grass. You have a really plush, juicy lie. What's going to happen is that these grooves on your club face are going to get filled up with water and the face is going to become slicker. So you're not going to get as much spin. So expect the ball to roll out a little bit after you hit it. As far as a bunker is concerned, I typically find if you have just kind of a normal bunker lie, it's about a third. So opening up the face, if you hit this pitch shot 60 yards and you have a 20-yard bunker shot, that's about the swing that you would use. You'd use about a 60-yard, but it's going to be a little bit different with everybody. So I would try hitting a 60-yard, what you feel is a 60-yard shot with your pitch, which would be a pitch. And then if you have a 20-yard bunker shot, I would try it with that and see how far it goes. All of this is just going out and practicing it and finding what works for you. So the best thing I could tell you, the best learning experience would be to go out, try a bunch of lies, see what happens when you hit the ball, see what happens when there's moisture in the grass. Bring a spray bottle out there with you. If it's dry out there, spray a bunch of water where it is. Pour a bucket of water on the grass and see what happens to the spin. And, hit 5 or 6 balls from there and see what happens with the spin versus a really dry, crisp lie. Hit some balls out of the bunkers. Hit somewhere the ball is, just a little fried egg. Hit somewhere the ball is completely buried in the bunker and see what kind of differences in things that you get. See how much the ball comes out. That's really going to be the best learning experience for you to find that, because everybody's going to be a little bit different. I can't tell you, I don't know your clubs are different than mine. Our swings are different. The way we hit the ball are different. Everybody's a little bit different. So you just really have to kind of go out and test those things specifically for your game. All right. Let me get to the next one here. We got about 10 minutes left. Keedron P. I apologize if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, but it says, as a pretty muscular golfer, is a lot of shoulder turn necessary? I seem to lose balance when rotating too far back. When irons goes well past the normal where I can see the head of the club head out of my peripheral. So keep in mind, it's everybody's to each their own. If you're a really strong guy and lanky guy, I look at Tony Finau as a great example of this. He doesn't get, he probably gets right at a 90-degree shoulder turn. I guarantee you he could get a lot more shoulder turn. Seems to be a very athletic guy. But getting that shorter shoulder turn for him, it works for him. And obviously he doesn't have any issues with distance. So you got to look at it and you got to find that happy medium. So if you're able to get the amount of club head speed that you want from a shorter swing and you're able to get more solid contact from that, and your distance, you're really, really happy with your distance and you're getting solid contact, then that's kind of a happy medium for you. That's where you should be. If you go really, really long, like John Daly style on every swing, and you can't hit the broadside of a barn, well, that may not be the best fit for you. And it could be, you can just practice that more and you'll get better. But if you're already a really strong and you're getting a lot of club head speed already, then it's not necessarily go super long. But keep in mind, you could get more distance if you were to able to connect on those shots because you're probably getting more club head speed. But I would also get something like a swing speed radar or a Swing Caddy 2 that's telling you how much club head speed that you're getting, because there may not be much of a difference between this swing and this swing. You got to find out what that trade-off is and figure out what works best for you. So that's what I would recommend. If you're someone who's really, really struggling with this distance, you're someone who's listening to the answer to that and thinking, well, I should shorten up my swing. If you're someone who's really, really struggling with distance, I would be swinging hard. I'd be trying to get as much as you can. If you're someone who's always behind your buddies, or you're always hitting hybrids into the greens or things like that, you don't have enough distance. You need to be working on getting enough distance and getting better at swinging longer and harder swing, because it's so much better to basically take a little swing that doesn't really go very far. I would much rather you take a swing where you're swinging really long, getting a ton of club head speed, and then getting better at hitting the golf ball from that point. All right. So Kedron has another question here. He says, or she said, I'm not sure. Should the swing be different with the irons and the driver? To help my driver, I start my swing outwards and turn the driver head of the wrist. Doesn't seem to work with the irons. So the only difference between all the pieces of the Top Speed Golf system are the same. You still want to be stable with your spine. You still want to generate lag. You still want to get a big turn. You still want to release the club out in front, compression line, all that good stuff. It's all the same. The move, it's the same. The only difference between your driver swing and your, at least for me anyway, is I'm probably a little bit more aggressive with my driver swing. I definitely swing harder with my driver than I do with my irons. I'm more aggressive with it. The other thing is you're hitting a golf ball off of a tee. It's elevated. It's off of a tee. You're hitting up into the golf ball. Whereas your irons, you're hitting off the turf. You're hitting down into the ball. And that's really the only difference. That's really about it. So whatever you're doing, sometimes we can get away with things with our driver versus an iron because we're not hitting it off the ground, right? So you don't have to have that ball first contact. You can get it, if you come in level with the ball versus hitting up on the ball or hitting down on the ball, you still can make good contact with the ball. Whereas with an iron, you can't do that. If you have to hit the ball first and then the ground, otherwise it's going to be a bad shot. So that's probably what's going on. Is you're probably you're able to get away with that with the driver because you're hitting up on it. But with the irons, you can't hit up on the ball. You need to be hitting down on the ball. So I imagine that's whatever you're doing, that's it's making that happen. So I would look at your swing on camera, make sure your compression line is good. You're hitting down into the ball. You may be angled too far away and hitting too far behind the ball or swinging too much from the inside. But again, it's hard to say without seeing your swing. All right. So, wow, that was the last question that was posted, and that was posted 29 minutes ago. So we got about 5 minutes left here. Excuse me. If nobody has any more questions, we'll go ahead and wrap it up, and we'll have a good weekend. But I'll give you another minute here to post a question, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. There's 23 people on here right now, so somebody has a question, let's go ahead and ask it, and if not, then we'll wrap her up. We'll just kind of wait a minute here. All right, here we go. David W. says, how do you deal with slow play? The key to slow play is just to not let it bother you. You're out on a golf course having fun. I played with a lot of people. I played college golf, played in tournaments, and people would get so upset about slow play. It really affect their game. They would just get so mad and be like, well, what are they doing? What is going on? Like, I want to hit my shot. It does. Unfortunately, it can take you out of your rhythm. If you're starting to play well, and then all of a sudden you hit a dead halt unfortunately, that can take you out of the rhythm, but you got to understand there's nothing you can do about it. So it doesn't do you any good to just sit there and whine and get mad about it. You may as well just feel you're outside, you're on a golf course, you're playing golf. I mean, what gets better than that, right? What I like to do is I might just take some practice swings, practice hitting a leaf or a piece of paper on the ground, just kind of stay loose and chit chat with your buddies, have a beer, whatever it might be. But yeah, you just can't let it bother you. And you just gotta keep enjoying yourself. And if you do that, it puts you're in a much better mindset. The main thing is, like, when you actually get to where you're ready to hit your shot, just go through your whole thing. Don't feel like you have to be in a hurry. That's the other thing that I see as well, is that I play with people. We wait, right? And then as soon as they're off the tee, we're all hurrying to hit the ball. Well, you may as well just take your time. They might let you play through, but you don't need to hurry to have them play through. I hate playing hurried golf. I don't, that doesn't, because you don't focus. You're not thinking about what you should be doing. So just enjoy it. And that's the best advice I can give to you. James M says, have a nice weekend. Thank you for your help. All right. Glad I could help. Mike, thanks, Q. No problem. Glad I could help. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll be back here Monday afternoon, 3 p.m. Also, I think we will there'll be Tuesday and Wednesday. We won't have office hours. We have a company thing going on that week, but we'll go Monday and then Thursday, Friday of next week. No office hours on Tuesday and Wednesday. I think that we're sending out an email about that, but just want to let you guys know here. Again, swing reviews, check that out if you're interested in joining the swing review program. I know Robin has spots available. I might have a couple spots, so check that out if you want an instructor to look at your swing. Take care, everybody, and have a good one.